If I were to tell you about elections during our time, you'll be shocked. But you have these good elections because you learned from us, the mistakes we used to have. Previously, we did not have an electoral commission. We had somebody called Supervisor of Elections who was working under the Attorney General. The longest serving Supervisor of Election was called Montgomery. I hope I'm right. He was a British fellow and he used to work under the Attorney General. I will comment about the election processes then, but let me fast forward and talk about who replaced him and who replaced him and who replaced him. There was a heavy rigging at Kitale concerning Masinde Muliro. And the DC was Anthony Oyer. You see, there was the DC. The DC is the one who, I'll come to that. The DC is the one who used to be the returning officer at the district level. But the DC was the returning officer at the district level for all seats. Like, what can I give you an example? Let's take Nakuru district. The district commissioner Nakuru was the returning officer for all the constituencies in Nakuru and all the civic wards. And remember Nakuru, there was Nakuru Municipal Council, there was Molo, there was Naivasha, there were several of them. And he was the returning officer for all that. And the DC was returning officer answerable to Supervisor of Elections. He was answerable to the Supervisor of Elections. Now the supervisor, as I said, was called Montgomery. I hope I'm not wrong, but he was a Kaburu. Just take it at that. Then there was an election in Kitale where we had some DCs who were very good in election rigging. One of them was called Anthony Oyer. He was the district commissioner for Kirinyaga, but he was specifically taken to Kitale to rig out Masinde Muliro. As I've said in one of my tapes about Masinde Muliro, elections were held and he was contesting against another Kipruto. Not Kipruto Kirwa, but another Kipruto. And when the district commissioner in Kitale or Trans Nzoia was not made the returning officer, but a returning officer had to be brought all the way from Kirinyaga, Anthony Oyer, to do that. And there were two sides where ballot papers were being counted. One side, the election came, let's say, around 70%, and another one 30%. And you know, the 70% side was for Masinde Muliro, and 30% was for Kipruto. Everybody knew because he had said, on my right, I want all the ballots for Masinde Muliro to be on the right, and on the left be. So what happened was, from the whole everybody, so, you know, 70, you cannot compare 70 and 30, and I've only given an example. So he looked at the line which was having many, said, hizo ni ngapi? How many are those? Then, you know, there was a lead clerk who was counting that. She went and told him, hizi za Masinde. He said, no, sitaki kujua ni za nani. How many are they? Then she told him how many they were. And then he announced that Kipruto has gotten that. And then he turned to the side which was Kipruto. He said, how many are these? The other clerk now had noticed that and said, it's 30%. I'm only giving a figure. Said, Masinde Muliro has gotten 30%. Everybody was shocked in the hall. That is the the greatest rigging that has ever happened in Kenya. And I know many of them, 99% of my viewers will think that it is fiction. So what happened, Masinde, you know you are allowed to request for a recount. Masinde Mudro requested for a recount, which was denied. And he stormed out of the hall, rushed to his home. We had that dial phone. He dialed to the operator and said, "Can you give me Nairobi this?" The operator gave him the Nairobi, and he talked to Montgomery, the supervisor of election, and he said, I want the election to be recounted. 5 minutes after saying that, already security personnel had known, and they were outside his house, Masinde Muriro's house, with scissors, and they cut the telephone wire. So Montgomery ordered that the elections, the balloting be recounted. A few hours later, his work permit was withdrawn, and he was expelled from Kenya. Then he was replaced by a police officer of the rank of superintendent, whose name was Zephaniah Anyeni. Zephaniah Anyeni became the supervisor of elections. He worked until he retired, but you see, that kind of work, you cannot say it, you cannot even compare it to today. He was replaced by somebody Amtaita called Mwangovia. Now, this is what used to happen in every district, plus, of course, Nairobi. Nairobi, the provincial commissioner was the one who was the returning officer. What used to happen was that, and I'm going to have a few tapes on election of that time, because I don't want to have a tape for 2 hours. But today I'm only concentrating on supervisor of elections. What used to happen is that there were these Mikebe tins, which were bought by I think they used to carry paraffin or something, because I remember they used to have Shell and BP and whatever. So these ones would be taken, and they would have 2 or 3 padlocks. And I would come to that later, but I'm talking about after, let's say we are in Kakamega, all the ballot papers for, all the ballot boxes for Kakamega would be taken to one central hall. In Nairobi, they used to be taken to KICC, and they had to wait for all the ballot papers, all the ballot boxes to arrive. Then they would start counting. And you can, if today's counting can take 2 days, you can remember what used to happen. But it was also purposeful, because during that counting, a lot of things used to happen. There was switching. As I've said, elections today, you have benefited from our mistakes. For example, there are so many things, and for example, those days, in a constituency, there could be 40 ballot boxes. So you count and you reach 39, and you know that your opponent has an unassailable lead. Then you tell the returning officer, no, I want us to recount. And they start from the first one. So you do that 2 to 3 times. The other fellow gets annoyed, storms out, and then you are rigged in. But what Chesoni did, what my nephew Chesoni did, and which the country must thank him, is that he came up with those forms, Form 1, 2, 3, and whatever. And if for any election, that for any election that, for any box that you did not agree with, they would place that box. You start with the first box, you are contented, you sign for that box, then go to the second box, then go to the third box, and future ECK and IBC even changed, because nowadays ballot boxes are counted from where they started. I have several recordings on elections, the evolving of elections from independent time, but today I wanted just to specifically talk about somebody called uh, supervisor of election. He used to be like a super returning officer. Thank you.